I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different, and every breakup is different. Work with me, and you'll get professional help on your situation. Just click on the link in the description below, or go to my website, askcraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And today we're going to be talking about attachment styles and cheating.
Yes.
One of the things that I always talk about on my channel is attachment styles. And that is a relationship, a bond that we form with our caregivers in the first, primarily 2 years of life.
That's right.
Of course, it goes beyond that, but those first 2 years are extremely important.
Right.
So we tend to form a style with our caregiver. You're either secure or you're insecure. And if you're insecure, it can break off in different ways. You can be anxious, you can be avoidant, or you can be disorganized, which is both.
Right. Disorganized is really disorganized. Yeah.
So we're going to look at how the attachment styles that you have or your partner has would be correlated to cheating, and this is all based on some great research that Margaret's done.
Thank you. I was very impressed with the article I basically took this presentation from, so I am going to share it with you. And the article starts by saying exactly the same thing Craig just said. The pattern for all of our relationships is really laid down very early. Now, it's not that they can't be modified, but we'd have to study them and understand them before we could even think about making changes in them. And they are, first of all, secure. If we get picked up enough, fed regularly, cooed at, changed a lot, interacted with, and interaction is becoming more and more noticed as one of the things that hooks children into good attachments. Mm-hmm. We need to be stimulated. So if people talk to you, if all those wonderful things happen, you will develop a secure attachment, which means that you will not probably spend much of your life worrying about your partner and what's happening with your relationship.
And the other thing is that we're finding more and more that your attachment style is directly correlated to your ability to regulate your emotions,
yes,
to handle anxiety,
right,
and depression, and your overall mental health.
Yes, absolutely. No question. So the more we learn about it, the better off all of us are. So the first one is secure, and if we have a secure attachment when we're little, we're very lucky, and we will probably not have too many problems.
When we do, we know how to cope with them.
We have some idea how to cope with them, absolutely, because we trust people, because we've learned that the environment is a safe and nurturing place.
Yeah.
All right, the next most common one is an anxious attachment. And if you form an anxious attachment as an infant, by comparison, you're more likely to be preoccupied with relationships. As adults, anxious people are constantly worried about their love life. They're never sure that they won't be left or that they are truly loved. They're never sure, and will need reassurance in a number of different ways. Mm-hmm. And when they've done many studies on this, these kids would go to mother for a while and then kind of back up and then come back, and they wouldn't go out of her sight to explore. They were always anxious about where mother was. And
they're always afraid of being alone.
Right.
Right?
Yes. There are people who have formed an avoidant attachment disorder as an infant, and they're uncomfortable with closeness and tend not to trust others. If they're avoidant, they have found that they can get really attached, and then they can be left, and it happens to them over and over again. So they come to the point where they're reluctant to attach, because every time they've done it, they've just kind of been left again.
Now, do you think avoidance can also be formed because you were smothered too much? And so
that can happen. Yes, that can happen.
So you're wanting distance, or you push people away, right, when they smother you?
And it's very, very normal for kids to start walking away from mom as soon as we can walk, except, with great joy we toddle in the other direction. But if you've been smothered, yes, and not allowed to go off and explore on your own, then you can certainly become avoidant. And avoidant people, like everyone else, are hardwired to want relationships, but they're frightened because every time they've attached, and I think children in foster care are probably the best example, every time they've gotten attached to somebody, things change. Okay, I can think of a kid I worked with one time who had been in 10 foster homes by the time he was, I don't know, 12 or something like that. So why would he want to attach with anyone? Every time he got attached, things changed. A couple of times he was sent home, a couple of times he was sent to different homes. He will struggle all of his life with relationships, and with good reason. If he can figure it out, so much the better for him. And then there's a disorganized attachment bond, which is pretty crazy. Disorganized attachment means that kids never knew what they were going to get from mother or caretaker or whoever was around them. They could have people who were yelling and screaming and having a fight in one room. They could have an older sister taking care of them in the other room until she got tired of it and her boyfriend was outside. Mother could be available regularly for a week and then not for the week after that. All kinds of chaos. And certainly, unfortunately, there are people who grow up in chaotic families. They have a terrible time with attachments. And they may be drawn to several different kinds because several crazy kinds are familiar. Okay? Now this next article is explained further with a scenario, and then how each different attachment style would affect the same scenario.
I want to say one thing before you go on.
Yes.
It's so critical to understanding attachment when you're trying to figure out how to have a healthy relationship, what you need to do to be healthier in your relationships, and what your partners may need from you in a relationship.
Right.
Because attachment is almost this entire separate entity. I have found that your attachment to your caregivers and that ability to bond with them is going to directly influence what they're going to be like as a partner, what you're going to be like as a partner. And you have to understand this, because when somebody struggles as much as somebody with a disorganized attachment, they are in a state of emotional turmoil all the time.
Yes, and I think they are frequently diagnosed with ADHD because they are literally all over the place. They have no executive functions. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about personality disorders?
Any attachment disorder, if it becomes a long-term pattern of relating with people, ends up being a personality disorder. I have said for years that personality disorder is really about attachment disorder. It's just a more specific flavor. Okay?
So all of this is directly correlated to why somebody would be unfaithful.
Yes. Or do anything else they do. Yeah. All right. Here's the scenario. Imagine, if you will, your fiancé is out at a bachelor party and tells you, now it could be he or she, bachelor, bachelorette, and they tell you that they will be home before midnight. Now, I never got home before midnight before from any party like that, did you?
I can't say I have.
No, but this well-behaved
That's when it's just getting started.
I know, but this well-behaved person says they'll be home by midnight and they will call you when they get home. All right. However, it gets to be 1 a.m. and they haven't called. How are you going to handle this? Okay? Well, if you have a secure attachment style, you're going to say, oh, gee, he or she didn't call. Well, they're probably having a good time. And if it's really, after midnight, they probably don't want to call and disturb me. I don't think I'll worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay? And they go off to bed.
You feel fairly confident that something just came up and that they'll get with you when they can.
And if they're having a good time, more power to them. Okay? Now, if you have an anxious attachment style and this whole thing happens, how do you think you're going to respond? Okay? It's 1 a.m. and the phone hasn't rung. What's going through your mind? If you have an anxious attachment disorder, what are you going to do? It's 1 a.m., the phone hasn't rung, and you're going to be a wreck by this time. Okay, where is this person? Should I call them? Did something happen to them? Are they okay? And then you start to get mad. How could they worry me like this? I'm really a nervous wreck. Or should I go find them? I know the restaurant they were going to. What should I do? Okay? So the anxiously attached person gets very anxious in this scenario.
Because they're afraid they're going to be abandoned.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what it's really about.
Right. And you think of all the worst things that could possibly happen. So when your fiance calls the next morning, you're still pretty angry. And you're going to interrogate them and want to know where they were, who they were with, what they were doing that late, how much did they have to drink, and why didn't they call you?
And then when they give you the reason, you're not going to believe it
any
anyway.
of them. That's right. Where were you? Who were you with? Why didn't you call me? Yeah, and they're not going to believe you anyway. And they're going to be really mad. Look at the difference. Okay?
It's going to start a big fight. You're going to say things you don't mean. Then all of a sudden, it's just going to blow up.
Right. Now, if you're avoidant, you're probably saying, how come he's calling so early this morning? You didn't even notice. Okay?
You know I like to sleep in on Sunday.
Yeah.
You're so disrespectful.
But the avoidant person is not focused on the relationship, not all anxious about where you are, just still so involved in their own stuff. It's, oh, well, it's nice to hear from you at 7, but how come you called so early?
And they might say, their attitude might be, well, if they're going to cheat, they're going to cheat.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Now, if you have a disorganized personality disorder, what do you think would have happened by now?
Threats. I can't believe you did this. We're done. I'm over you. And then
but I love you. Yeah.
And then I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Let's work it out. And then you try and talk to him. No, I don't want to talk.
That's right.
I'm too upset.
Yep.
You're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, and will be for a couple of weeks. But what I jotted down here when I was doing this was that you have called all of the emergency rooms, the police, and the person's mother, and you're utterly, so that the family's in an uproar now, so that everyone is utterly hysterical, including you, and then you're saying, but you can't possibly live without your fiance, etc., etc., etc. So you will have made a huge scene, noise, etc., etc., etc. Now, aren't the differences striking?
Absolutely.
Aren't they striking?
All stemming from your attachment to your caregivers.
Yep. Yep. And how many people have both of us known who have an anxious attachment, which means we do attach, but we're never quite sure of it. And
how strong that attachment
how strong that is. So if somebody says something really nice to us in the morning, we're kind of happy all day, but if they come home and say something not nice, then we're thrown for the next 12 hours. So-and-so doesn't really love me.
Yep. Because they've been hurt in that way before.
They've been hurt enough. But I thought it was just a striking contrast of what a difference it makes if people have secure attachment styles. And we've never done very much education about this, and the overall thought on children, for the most part in Western civilization, not just this country, is that kids will grow up pretty well, and you know, we take the best care we can of them. But there are certain things we need to know that can make an enormous difference, okay, in how well we're able to attach and to trust. And this one's really about trust. If you were a little kid and your mom would drop you off too often at your aunt's house, the neighbor's house, your dad's mother's house, whatever, and mom might think you're perfectly safe and happy there, and you might be perfectly safe there, but you might not have been happy because it may have been too long before mom came back.
Yeah.
It might have been more anxiety than you could handle at 1.5 years or 2. And so we'd have to be really careful to make sure that time like that was made up. If you have a large family, you're taking care of a bunch of kids, all kind of stuff happens in families, people come and go. It could very easily happen that somebody ends up with an anxious attachment disorder and still has a very caring parent.
Yeah.
The avoidant personality, on the other hand, knows very, very early on that they're on their own and they're going to have to take care of themselves. And they do their best to attach, and they want to attach, but sometimes they're very frightened. And if someone starts to attach to them, they back off. And then finally, when they come to their senses, say, I wanted to be with this person. Why did I back off like that?
And I think that's critical that you said that, because everybody that sees the videos, they think, well, my partner was avoidant. Why would they ever want to come back to me? Because on a biological
Yes.
level, deep within us, we all long to attach.
Yes, we do. We want connection. Yes.
And so, even if somebody has an avoidant attachment style, they still want to attach.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
critical you understand
Yes.
this.
And it's one of the biggest puzzles in the world because it's so counterintuitive. If I'm nice to you and I take good care of you and I do thoughtful things for you all the time, what do you mean that scares you? Okay? And that's exactly what happens with the avoidant person. They're not used to being close and they don't know if there's strings attached or they're going to be smothered or someone will try to control them or just what will
Mistreat
happen.
them.
It feels strange.
They could be mistreated
Yes.
by that person,
Yes.
or abandoned, or,
Yes.
I mean, that doesn't feel good to them. Attachment is like, ew,
Right.
what?
But it's very, I talked with someone this morning who was quite insightful about all that. But it's very difficult to explain to most people, why does she back away just when things are going well? Because she can't handle that much closeness. Or he can't handle that much closeness and doesn't know what to do. So in that
They could
case,
sabotage things.
Sure. But in that case, what you'd have to do if you want to work with them as a couple is get everybody aware of their attachment styles and then work from there.
Yeah,
Because things can be altered if people are willing to work at it.
that's right.
The hardest part is making it conscious,
That's right.
okay? And you know people who've been in several relationships and they always end around the 8-month part, around when they hit the 8th month point. I had a woman who came to me for therapy one time who had ended like 4 engagements at the 3-year point. She was eventually able to engage in a long-term relationship, but it took some work on her part to understand why she got it, why that is, what kinds of things scare her.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I say, it's counterintuitive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Does the research talk at all about why somebody with a particular attachment style would cheat? Like why an avoidant would cheat? Why an anxious person would cheat?
Okay, an avoidant would cheat and not think too much about it.
That would be my thought.
Yeah.
Because they don't value that relationship.
They don't
as much.
value the intensity of the relationship that much. So, yeah.
So my feeling is for them they would kind of be a little bit more like, well, I mean, I found somebody new. I mean, it wasn't working with us.
Yeah. Or I just did it 5 times, all of course with different people because I didn't want to get too close. And they would have little idea why you were as upset as you were.
Yeah. Now remember, it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay? You can be extremely avoidant, you could be extremely anxious, or you could be anywhere in between.
In between, right.
So, just because somebody's an avoidant doesn't mean they're going to cheat. Just because somebody's anxious or has an anxious attachment style doesn't mean they're going to cheat.
No, it doesn't mean that.
But for me, the anxious person would be more likely to cheat because they're scared, they're alone, they don't want to be alone,
Exactly.
and so they want to use that person like an object.
Yes, to make themselves feel better. And they can't tolerate the goodies from somebody they are constantly with. It makes them nervous. So yes, absolutely.
So I see a lot of the times that, like I give the expression, a man never throws away his only pair of shoes. Obviously it could be for women too, right? It's a rule of thumb, it's not always, but a lot of times if somebody's been unhappy, they're looking for somebody else to replace and line up so they don't have to be alone. It's scary to be alone.
Yes.
And so they hook up with somebody and they think it's going to be great, or this fantasy person.
That's right.
And they don't want to be alone. So there you go, and they go from person to person.
And you can see some people bounce back and forth between a couple of people, or a few people. I'm with him. No, I'm with him.
I've heard the term monkey branching before.
I had not heard that term, monkey branching.
When you're going from one vine to the next.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And the vine, I guess, could be a visual.
But yes. But I mean, this does it because
And a metaphor.
Yes, you could be. I hope so. I can be with him for a while, I can be with my friend George over here for a while, but I don't have to get too close to either one of them. And there's always, whenever I'm unhappy with this one, the other one's always glad to get me. So this works quite well.
And that sometimes that's called triangulating.
Yes. Or it can even be a parallelogram. Yeah. There are all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah.
But
if it's an octagon, get the hell out.
Yeah, run. But attaching looks easy, but look at the difference here. With this fiancé and this upcoming wedding, the only one that looks really that good is the secure person. And I think the numbers kind of go in descending order. The vast majority of people, thank God, or at least enough to keep us going, are secure. And then the next common group would be anxious, and then avoidant, and then disorganized.
And it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And you can vary on the spectrum yourself, depending upon what's going on in your life, and your own mental health, and whatever's going on, you know? So it's not set in stone.
Yeah, but I mean, if I have an anxious attachment disorder, and my husband travels, okay, I may have to go through agony every time he travels, but I would have to deal with that, be aware of that, let him know about that. It isn't anything you've done, it's my baggage that's coming with me, and that's why I give you a hard time every time you go to Cleveland.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm afraid you're never coming back.
That's right, exactly.
Or I'm afraid of what you're doing while you're there.
Yeah, but I've had clients who, when I went on vacation, went into a full-blown abandonment panic, really thinking I would never come back because that had been their history.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep. A lot to think about.
It's a lot to think about.
Do you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Just that there's not much in this world that can't be modified if people are willing to work on it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. I want to add anything else about disorganized, because you have so much insight into that.
Disorganized attachment disorder. I worked in the prison system for a period of time, and I would guess that a number of the people in the prison system have a disorganized personality disorder. And if you work with economically deprived families, they tend to be chaotic. At worst, dad ends up in jail and mom ends up as a single mother, probably on AFDC. Men come in and out of the house. It's crazy in the jail system. You can imagine that all those factors play into what happens for a person who's disorganized. And I say they almost always get labeled as ADHD because none of the executive functions work, meaning even as little ones they can't make reasonable decisions or calm themselves down when they get really crazy upset.
Yeah.
And I think it would flow for maybe the next next presentation I'm going to do for you will be on calming yourself down, because that's a huge topic out there these days. It's always been a huge topic, but it's being talked about more these days. But you know, I think of little kids you see, say in a public place, who are bouncing off the walls. I was in a Dunkin' Donuts not long ago, and there was a young mother there with a kid, maybe 3. And she was on her cell phone and paying no attention whatsoever to him. And he escalated and escalated and escalated and finally knocked down the sign. And you could see his desperation, you could see it. But I don't think mom could see it, and I don't think she meant the child ill or meant to damage him, and I thought he's going to be diagnosed before he walks out of this restaurant as ADHD. And that isn't really the problem. Although it can become a chemical problem after a while.
Yeah.
That's not what it started out to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So there you have a lot of information to think about and consider with attachment styles and cheaters and how it affects it, and you know, just things to be aware of.
Yes. And if you start thinking about these various categories and the people you know and the relationships you have, you'd be amazed how quickly it becomes clear.
Absolutely.
At least in global terms, at least in broad terms. Oh, I see.
Absolutely.
That's why he's panic-stricken every time she leaves the house. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So if you want to get our help personally, just go to my website, askcraig.net, sign up for the coaching option that works best for you. I do email coaching, Skype coaching, and if you got to get with me right away, emergency Skype coaching. Margaret is also for Skype coaching.
Yes, and looking forward to talking with you.
So that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And we will talk with you soon.
Hi, I'm Coach Margaret. a relationship coach and a psychotherapist with 35 years experience. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. If you would like professional help with your situation, please contact us at askcraig.net.